welcome back to the channel. I'm sure it's kind of noisy in here. We're in the new shop truck heading over to Rural King to pick up something for a project I'm about to start. So I figured what better way to start the video off than with a good old intro. But anyway, I think you guys are going to like this project. I'm going to run over here and pick something up. We're going to be doing some cutting and some welding and some fabricating, and hopefully by the end of this video we are going to have a fully functional tow rig. So make sure you guys stay tuned and I will see you in a little bit. And just like that, 2 hours of traffic and me going to two different Rural Kings was just a matter of seconds for you guys. So what you guys are looking at here, for those who don't know, this is called a boom pole. As mentioned, I picked this one up at my local Rural King. It was right at 200 bucks. They had about 4 of them in stock. It seems to be a pretty, I don't want to say generic, it seems to be a pretty common thing to find at your ag stores, your Big R's, Rural King, Tractor Supply, stuff like that. Now, before we get into the details of this thing and me showing you the kind of the quality and stuff like that on it, I want to talk about why I went and bought a boom pole today. So for those who watched the video on the D180, it was 2 videos ago, about a month ago, give or take. I had mentioned there towards the end that I didn't know what to do with the tractor. It came with a 3-point, and I really wanted to find something to do with it. And I had a lot of good comments, a lot of good suggestions. And I'd mentioned that I'd love to make a tow rig out of it. Now, unfortunately for me, but fortunately for you guys, this is a Category 1 3-point attachment. But the D180 wheel horse in question has got a Category 0 is what they call that. The main difference is the Category 0, they use 5/8 pins right here. Whereas the Category 1, it might even be the 2, I don't want to tell you guys wrong, they use 7/8 pins. The other main difference is the distance, the width between mounting pin to mounting pin. And also Rural King sells tow bars. I think that's what they call these. Hang on. Drawbars is what they call these. So I went ahead and picked one up to kind of give you guys side by side here to show you what the issue is going to be here. This drawbar here is a Category 0, and you can see how much smaller the pins are and how much narrower the footprint is between the 2 pins. So that being said, in order to make this boom pole work on my wheel horse and to make us a sweet tow rig out of it, I'm gonna have to do some chopping and some welding and some fabricating to make this bolt up. So I've been kind of spitballing, having a cold snack, thinking of how I want to do this. Fortunately, these cross braces here, they're far enough in that we won't have to mess with those. So I'm thinking what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay this drawbar up here as a template. I'm gonna do some marks with the Sharpie, get the old tape measure out, and try to do some measurements, and we are going to chop this angle iron down, removing these pins, and I've got some new Category 0 pins. We will be welding these in place of these. Now, before you guys go yelling at me for chopping up and cutting and welding and grinding on a brand new implement, let me just show you some of the quality of this, what's this called? King Cutter brand sold by Rural King. Now, you guys know I've never claimed to be a great welder. I can make stuff stick, but I'm not an expert by no means. But whoever put this thing together, this must have been built on a Friday afternoon, because we have got splatter, we have got burn throughs, not to mention the overspray of paint. Got some more excellent welds there. Now again, I'm not going to be one to complain. This thing was only 200 bucks, but man, I would think that they would spend a little bit more time making sure these things were presentable before they shipped them out. So it's not a big deal to me. I'm gonna hack this thing up anyway, but for you guys who's in the market, I just want to point some of this stuff out so you're not disappointed whenever you go to spend your money and you bring this thing home and you have welds like that. Now, before we get to throwing sparks, there's something else I do want to talk about. So this thing is right at, 6.5 foot long, give or take, depending on where out in the bend you measure. I'm not an engineer, but I'm sure you guys know how leverage works. We go bolting this thing to this tractor, and I know these D-Series weigh about 1,000 pounds. By the time you put another 400, 500, 600 pounds on the end of this, 6 foot out from the mounting point. You see where I'm going with this. We might have some issues with the front end being a little light on the tractor. So I've thought about doing a couple different things. I might end up adding some front end weights to it, but I think the easiest thing to do is we're probably going to cut this thing down. So that's a possibility. I've still got a pin on that, so we'll come back to that. Well, I think to start with, we'll go ahead and get this business end chopped down. So it looks like the category 0, you've got about 20 inches from base of the pin to base of the pin. That looks like exactly 2 foot. So we have got 4 inches to lose, so we will come off each end 2 inches and make a mark and chop it off there. Now I really do enjoy this Amazon plasma cutter. I've used it quite a few times now. The only thing I don't like is that the ground clamp is just not long enough. They give you about 10 foot of width for the actual cutter itself, but the ground lead, they only give you about maybe 5 foot. So whatever I'm cutting, I got to stay nice and close to, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. I'm sure I could fix that, but you know. All right, I have no idea what the amps are set on. No idea what they should be set on. Let's see what happens here. You know what's holding this up? This 3-point pin extends just a hair past where I'm cutting at. So I got to gnaw through that for that'll come off there. There it is. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side, and I'll bring you guys back when we're ready to clean up. What are you doing, Wiener Dog? Anyway, figured I'd do a little side-by-side comparison here. So this was the side I used the plasma cutter on / cutoff wheel. And you can see it worked fine. It served its purpose. It got the edges cut. But this side is the one I use the old death wheel on. And you can see how precise and clean that cut is. Now I will say I've got a lot more experience using a cutoff wheel than a plasma cutter. So somebody out there who's a little bit more fluent with the plasma could probably do a just as good a job as a cutoff wheel. But just want to show you guys a little side-by-side comparison there. If you are in the market for a good plasma cutter, I'll put the link for this one in the description. It has cut everything I've needed it to cut. And I went into it as green as can be, and I somehow still figured out how to use it. So if you guys are in the market, I'll put the listing for that in the description. It was right around, I want to say 150 bucks or something. All right, I have got the boom pole cleaned up. I'm going to go ahead and mark these new Cat 0 pins the same length as this drawbar, so I know how much stick out. I don't know, what's the smart word for stick out? Extrusion? How much extrusion we want. And I was honestly surprised Rural King had all this stuff in stock. The upper link, both bottom links. They also carry Cat 1, 2, and 3 parts as well. The Cat 0 stuff, they don't have as much, but they did have this stuff, which I was thrilled to see, instead of having to wait on shipping. All right, we've got these marked. Just need to get enough of a hold on here so I can get a tack. I gotta say, this is the first time I've used this Harbor Freight table for actually welding, and pretty handy. I was able to flip this thing over and cinch this thing down on the table. All right, let's go and get the tape measure out and measure. I want about 2 1/4 to 2 1/8 of stick out. That side's good. That side needs to come in just a little bit. Overall width, just a hair under 20 inches. I'd say we are good to go after I scoop this one in. Okay, we are ready to burn some metal here. After I hook my ground up. All right, now we're ready to weld. All right, not too shabby. Remember guys, I've never claimed to be a good welder, but I can make stuff stick together. I know it's kind of ugly. The top weld don't look bad. This one's kind of foobar, but I did make 2 passes on each side. I also continued the weld down here to the bottom to stitch this in to this outside edge of that channel. This side overall turned out a little bit better, but again, I'm happy with it. I'm just using a Flux Core 110. Sorry, a Flux 125. This is the off-the-shelf Harbor Freight Special. Well, you know what to say. Grinder and paint makes me the welder I ain't. All right, the next dilemma is we need to do something about this top link. Now, the way top links work on 3 points, you've got this adjustable, I don't know, Heim apparatus thing. So you'll actually lock this in on the implement and the other end goes on the tractor, and what you can do, it's reverse thread on one end. So if you want to lengthen it, you turn it one way. If you want to shorten it, you turn it the other. It pulls the links in. And what that does is adjust the angle of your implement. Anyway, the issue we've got, since this is a category 1, these holes here are 7/8. Our Cat 1 pins are 5/8. Now in theory, I could use the holes that are already here. Wouldn't be that too bad. I could even put a washer on this one end to hold it in place, but by doing that, this top link pin is almost a hair too short, and I can't get my my cotter pin or hasp pin, whatever, to hold this in place. And this is going to be rattling when it's moving. It's just not the right way to do it, but by all means, if you're in this situation, do it. It'll be just fine. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to drill us 2 new 5/8 holes just below these existing ones. All that's going to do is just change the geometry of the angle of the dangle, if you know what I'm saying, by lowering these holes down. And it won't change it enough to where it's going to mess anything up. That's literally the only difference it's going to make. So I'll go ahead and put me a mark there. Well, I ended up having to use the old burr bit to finish these holes off. My drill bit finally went dull on me. So that took way longer than it should have. But, as you can see, it's working fine. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're ready for our first test fit. And silly me, I only bought 1 top link pin. I totally forgot to get 2 because I need one for the implement and the tractor, but we'll put a bolt in it for now to hold it. Oh, there it is. Sit it down on my table. This one's kind of sticky. Okay, well that's a good sign. I did buy some new lynch pins. So we'll go ahead and put a couple of these in here so this doesn't slide back off. Nice. I'm kind of already starting to see a problem here. I'm sure you guys are seeing it too. This top link is nowhere near long enough. You know, guys, this shows the importance of a good cold snack. So before I got the old death well out and started hacking up brackets and stuff, I said, you know what, I'm gonna sit down for a second, have a little drink, just kind of think about stuff. And I'm glad I did, because it dawned on me that I had my 3-point all the way up instead of down. And so that's why there was no room to get this top link in. As soon as I fired the tractor up and lowered it down, voila, we got all the room in the world to hook this up. So now I'm gonna go ahead and start the tractor back up. I'm gonna get a baseline measurement to see, trying to figure out how much throw we've got with the current setup and see if it's gonna be enough to do what I'm wanting it to do. So yeah, let's get this thing started. So right now in the full down position, we are about 59. We'll call it 5 foot for the sake of math. So we're at 5 foot now. Let's start it and see what we can get it up to. Also, I got to add that the motion control lever on this, it's got a lot of slop in it, and it kind of likes to take off on its own. So if I get run over, just know it was because of this tractor. All right, that is all the way up with about a 1/16 of an inch between the top link and the back of the frame. So now let's take a measurement. So we knew we were at 5 foot earlier. Now we are sitting at 76 and a half. So we'll call it 76 for simplicity's sake. So you figure that's 16 inches of lift. I mean, I would think that'd be enough. I mean, all we're doing is just picking up, you know, stuff. I mean, 1.5 feet is a pretty good amount. But I tell you what I'm worried about. We'll do a little test here. I weigh about 290 pounds on a bad day, and I'm worried. Oh, yeah, see that? With all this leverage coming out the back, this thing's lifting capacity is not that good. Well, it is actually the next day, so I had some time to do some thinking last night on what these issues might be, and I don't know why I didn't even think about it till now. The main difference, besides the size of the pins and the distance between category 0, category 1, 2, on and on, not only is the difference there, there's also a height difference. I believe they call it the mast measurement from the horizontal mounting height to where the top link. So on your category 1, everything I've read, they're usually 18 to 24 inches, somewhere in that area. And that's what this is. On your category 0, it should be much less than that. It should actually be about 12 inches. So if we get the tape here, I've already made a mark. Right at the top of my thumb, that would be a 12-inch mast height, which is what a category 0 should have. But 12 inches, give or take, is almost making to where that top link is perfectly level with my 3-point all the way down. Now, the reason why I think that's important is because when this 3-point does its thing and it cycles from all the way down to all the way up, this 3-point will be able to travel completely without getting into the back of the frame. And as you remember, we were having the issue where it was hitting the frame of the tractor when I had this super aggressive angle of the attachment. So anyway, long story short, what I think I'm going to do, I've got some, I think it's this 3/16 steel plate, maybe it's 1/4 inch, I don't remember. I'm going to cut out and pretty much make a couple of these. I'm pretty sure I'm going to want these to be about 4 inches long and probably 2 inches wide apiece. So I guess we'll just go 4x4. That should be close enough. I did go through and clean this piece of metal up, threw it in the sandblaster to give me a nice flat surface to work off of. You know what we could do? We could spruce these up a little bit. Put a round end on the one side. Oh no, let's see what happens. Well, I got these shaped up pretty good. I went ahead and tack welded them together. That way when I go to drill it, I know I'm drilling both in the exact same spot. And this would be a great time for me to have a drill press, which I do not own. So I'm going to manhandle this in the old bench vise, and let's hope for the best. All right, I got the new plates somewhat cleaned up, good enough to weld. Got the holes drilled into them. I have got the boom pole mocked back up here, so I'm going to roughly set these in and figure out the best place to put them, and then we will clamp them and weld them. Well, there's a lot of cussing involved there, but I did manage to get these clamped on roughly where I think I want them. I'm just going to make a rough outline on where they're at. So if they do move, I'll have to do this over again. But I think they're going to be close enough. I'm going to go ahead and take the boom pole back off the tractor and get it put up on my table. And we'll measure them and get them square on both sides. And then we'll tack them. And then we'll do another test fit. All right, I got these somewhat mounted square to this frame. We're right at 11 inches to the bottom of the plate. So if you swing this out, we're right at about 12 inches to the center of that pin, which is what they say you need. And we did a trial run. This should work. So instead of me trying to square up both at the same time, I'm going to go ahead and tack this one in place, give me something to go off of, and then I'll put the other plate on, square it up to this one. We should be good. As you guys can tell, that geometry is a much better angle. I'm much happier with that setup than the old one. All right, for the sake of science, I say we go ahead and start this thing. And we're gonna run that 3-point all the way up and see what kind of throw we got with this new geometry setup. In the full down position, we are sitting at, looks like to the top of the hook, we'll just call it 64.5. So let's start this thing and try not to run myself over. We'll run the 3-point all the way up and then measure again. Holy cow, that is a whole lot more. And actually, I think it could have went even more, but these old brackets are about to hit the fuel tank, so I had to stop. So let's measure that and see what that is. That's crazy. And a longer tape measure. All right, so now we are sitting at, looks like 86.5. So what I say, 64.5 to 86, so that is 22.5 inches, whereas before we only had 16 inches of travel. So just by changing that geometry like that, we managed to gain another 6 inches of lift. And I'm sure that's the way it's supposed to be, but you know, I'm new to this 3-point stuff, so I'm not even gonna bother tugging on this. Let's pull this back off again, fully weld all them brackets in, paint it, throw it back on, and then we can test it out and see what it's gonna do. Well, I am not too disappointed with these welds. I mean, they're not perfect. And as you guys know, anybody who welds, they can do it better than everybody else. So, but anyway, I'm happy with them. They look pretty strong. While that's cooling, I am going to go ahead and take the old cutoff wheel, and I'd kind of like to try to get the whole bracket off, but this metal's not very thick, and I'm worried if I go cutting and prying trying to get this off, it's going to tear this. So it's going to be ugly, but I think what I might do is cut it off right here. That way we still have the option to go to this upper mounting point for whatever reason we might need it. But if I cut this off, this should give us enough room that we can run the full cycle of the 3-point and be okay. So yeah, while that's cooling, I'm gonna go ahead and hack these top ears off, and I'll bring you back. All right, I got these upper ears chopped down. When I cut them off, I went ahead and rounded the edges off, trying to make them look a little bit better. So now I'm going to go ahead and throw a couple coats of paint on here. I got some self-etching primer, and then we'll hit it with some red. Not going for showroom, I'm just trying to slow down the old rust, if you know what I'm saying. I mean, there's scuffs and scratches all over this thing anyway. It'll never be perfect, but I can at least make it good enough. That's my specialty. Good enough. All right, I think we are finally ready to test this thing out. Now, as you can tell, I don't have very high hopes for this thing having a whole lot of lifting capacity unless we add some serious counterweight to the front end or we chop this down back here. But it's together, so I say we try it out and see what it'll do. And what better thing to try it out on than another Wheel Horse D180. Yeah, you guys aren't seeing doubles. This is another tractor I picked up actually a couple weeks after we did the revival on this other one. This one cosmetically is in a lot better shape. I will be doing a revival on this one as well, hopefully if we can get it started. But I say it'll be a pretty fair comparison. If that thing can pick its own self up with that boom pole, then I'd say we're going to be all right. Well, that didn't work. I mean, this thing is pretty heavy. It weighs 1,000 pounds. I don't know what these 3 points are rated for, but... Well, that wasn't a very successful first trial. Also, I apologize. I didn't notice until after I finished filming that my microphone wasn't working, so you couldn't hear anything I was saying. But that's all right. I was just rambling anyway. So, positives. My welds are holding. And I put quite a bit of stress on this thing, trying to pick up that D series. All that stuff's good and tight, so I'm very happy about that. We just got to figure out how to get more lifting capacity out of this thing. So I know my biggest concern, I was worried that the front end was going to get light on this thing, but I quickly realized that our issue isn't going to be that so much as the lifting power of the 3-point on these tractors. I tried doing some Googling to see what people are saying. Most people are saying they wouldn't put no more than 300 pounds on the back, which I don't know if I believe that. That's not a whole lot of weight. But I think the best route we can go is to actually cut this down like we had talked about. So that will solve the front end being light, and it also should solve the problem of lifting power. Now, it took me drinking a couple cold snacks before I finally wrapped my mind around that, because in my mind I'm thinking the way leverage works, if I pull down on this right now, I can lift the front of that tractor off the ground. So you would think in theory that would translate to more lifting power at the end of this hook the longer it is. But it doesn't. It's opposite. The best way I can explain it to you, if you had a 8-pound sledgehammer about 4 foot long, you choked up on it and picked it up right by the head, you're going to have 8 pounds right there. But if you slide your hand down to the bottom and you try to pick it up, you see where I'm going with that. There's going to be a whole lot more effort required to do that. So that's what we got going on here. Since it's so far out and it's so high up, it's taken more power to get this lifted up than it would if it was choked down to here. I mean, in theory, it's if we cut it back to here, we should double the lifting power that we have available because we're shortening this by 50%. So yeah, I think the next step, I'm gonna get the old cutoff wheel out. I gotta figure out how I wanna go about doing this. I don't wanna cut into the support brace. So probably right about here in this area, we'll chop this off. What I'd like to do is cut this rod about here so we have some meat left over, and I would like to fold this round rod over kind of like they did from the factory. That way we've got something that looks somewhat normal. If not, I'm going to try to find a clevis or a shackle or something. I don't know. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So for now, let's get the cutoff wheel out. We'll shorten this up and go from there. I'm thinking about 3 inches from this support bracket should do what we need it to do. That way I've got enough meat left over to give me some options, you know what I mean? So I don't know how I want to do this yet. Nailed it. Okay, here's where we're at. We got this chopped down and shortened. I have got a nice round socket clamped to the top of this tube, and I'm hoping I'm going to be able to kind of chase this bend all the way down and under. And I know this appears like it's easy to bend, but I'm sure it's going to fight me. So I might have to heat it up a little bit, but again, my plan is to get kind of like the way that one was, a nice loop here on the end where I can fold this back and under. And actually, if I could get it, you know, a good 6 inches or so, I can weld all of this to the bottom of this brace, and it would just make it all that stronger. Oh, right on my foot. Oh, that tickled. Well, it is the next day. I kind of threw the towel in last night once I got this loop where I wanted it. So now all we got to do, I got the top pin out. I got this thing folded up far enough that I can weld this pretty easily. I'm going to take my old wire wheel, clean this paint up, and I'm just going to burn this in on both sides as much as I can. And this should be plenty strong enough. And for comparison, this is all they had welded on the old setup. So evidently they trust 3 inches of weld just fine. So I'd say if we double or triple, that will be really good. We got the bottom welded up pretty good. I mean, you figure that's got to be a good 6-8 inches there of weld on both sides. Welds ain't terrible, but it should hold. But there is one more thing I want to do before I put the welder up for good, hopefully. I am going to go ahead and close this box end off. The way these came factory, they were open as well. And I'm sure it'd be fine, but there's no drainage hole down here at the bottom. So this thing is just constantly going to be catching rain and everything else, and it'll eventually rust that out down there. And on top of that, if I weld a plate here on the end, it's going to do nothing but strengthen this end up even more. So I'm going to go ahead and burn this in, and I'll bring you back. Well, all right, guys, I think I'm finally done welding on this thing. But it should be a lot better than it was, and it should really strengthen up the end of this tube as well, since most of the weight we're going to be picking up is going to be right here on this end. So I'm going to go ahead and do the ritual of primer and paint, and I'll bring you guys back when we're done with that. Well, we have got everything hooked back up for like the 4th time now. I've lost count. So as soon as it decides to quit raining, we're going to take this thing out and try it out again, and hopefully we'll get some better results than the first time. Womp, womp, womp. Well, guys, I just don't think a D-Series is meant to pick up another D-Series. Like I said, these things weigh like 1,000 pounds, so I could kind of understand it, I guess. But still, I mean, I hardly ever work on these things. So I guess let's pick up a normal sized wheel horse and see if we can yank it around the yard. Oh yeah. Oh, it's perfect. Well, what do you guys think? I think I kind of need to pull back my expectations on what this thing can do. I was really hoping the 3-point would have enough power to pick that D series up, but maybe I'm asking too much of it. Like I said, maybe them guys online ain't wrong, saying it can only pick up about 300 pounds. So again, this is a garden tractor, not a mid-size tractor, and I think we're pushing about the most we can do. Now, when I did hook it up to that smaller workhorse, it yanked it up and pulled it around just fine. And I don't know if it showed up in the video, but just having that one on the back of it, just driving kind of, I got some dips and some hollers and stuff in my yard. The front end was getting a little light. So it's definitely a good thing we went ahead and shortened this thing. And like I said, it definitely improved its lifting power. It's just not enough to pick up one of them D series. So unfortunately, whenever I do drag that thing in the shop, I'll have to do it the old school way for now. And but hey, I had fun on this project. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching it. And if anybody has got a garden tractor with a 3-point, I highly recommend you give this thing a try. It'll serve more than one purpose, and that's the beauty of these 3-points. If I decide to make something else, it's 3 linchpins, and this one comes off, and I can put something else on. But yeah, guys, I appreciate you watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this one, something a little bit different. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.